In my last video, I talked a little bit about the 3D cursor and how it can be useful. So today I thought we'd talk about the 2D cursor as a nice addition for our UV Unwrapping series. So I'm going to left click my cube here, and I'm going to press tab to go into edit mode and press A to select everything, and we'll have our default cube unwrap, which comes with every cube you add in Blender. And here you can see we have our 2D cursor. Much like the 3D cursor, you can just shift and then right click to move your 2D cursor around, and you can also press shift S to open up cursor movement menu. So for example, I could choose cursor to origin, and that's going to return it to that middle point there. Also, if I press this button here to go into vertex select mode, and I'll select this point here, I can also move the cursor to that point by pressing shift S and then choosing cursor to selected. I'll press shift S and I'm going to return it to the origin again, although you might be wondering why this is even useful in the first place. And pretty much what this will allow us to do is give us some more options for moving our islands. For example, I'll press L to select my island here, and I'll press R, and you can see right now it's rotating around the center of mass, which might be what you want most of the time. But if I wanted to rotate it off a specific point, which I could control using this 3D cursor, I could change our point by coming up to here to this pivot menu and changing from bounding box center, which is the default, to 2D cursor. Now when I press R, you'll notice it's going to rotate around that 3D cursor, and this can be really handy for rotating around specific points. For example, I could left click this vertex here, press shift S and press cursor to selected. Then I could press L to select my UV island and press R, and you see it's going to rotate around that specific point now. This of course works with other transforms such as scale, for example. So if I press S, you can see it's going to start scaling from that point specifically. I could also move individual points to my 3D cursor, so I'm going to return it to the origin first. So I'll press shift S and choose cursor to origin. Then I'm going to select one of these points and press shift S and then choose selected to cursor. You can see I've easily moved that point to a specific point, and that can be really handy for getting precise edits with your UV editing. I'll press Ctrl Z to undo that. If you forget the hotkey, you can also use our side panel on the left here by left clicking this option here, and now all you have to do is left click to move your cursor around. But yeah, that just about covers it. I thought I'd go over a few use cases of the 2D cursor and how it might be useful for your UV editing workflow. If you want to learn more about UV unwrapping, make sure to check out my free playlist, which goes over important concepts and quick tips like these. Apart from that, I'd like to thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Take care.